The tray didn't even hit the floor before she started filming. That's the part nobody talks about later, how fast Sloane Whitaker had her phone up, how the little red dot was already glowing before the glasses stopped rolling across the polished oak. A young man in a plain black server's vest was on one knee, calmly gathering the mess he hadn't caused, and a woman with 2 million followers was leaning over him like he was the best content she'd found all week. "Oh my God," she said, loud enough for the whole terrace to hear. "Smile for the camera, busboy. This is the closest you'll ever get to money." He looked up. He didn't glare. He didn't flinch. He just said, very quietly, "Sorry about the spill, Mom. I'll have it cleaned in a second." And he went back to picking up the glass. Remember that calm. You're going to want it later, when her whole world tips over in front of 300 people who used to adore her, because the young man on his knees wasn't a busboy. He wasn't even really an intern. And by the end of that afternoon, Sloane Whitaker would understand in the most public way imaginable that the person she'd just tried to humiliate held her entire career in the palm of his hand. Let me back up. His name was Adam, and on paper he was the newest intern at Ravenwood Country Club, the kind of place where the parking lot looks like a luxury car showroom and the membership waiting list is longer than most people's lives. 3 weeks earlier, he'd shown up in a pressed white shirt, introduced himself with a soft handshake, and asked the floor manager where he should start. He bussed tables. He polished silverware until it caught the light. He carried trays up the long stone steps to the terrace in the August heat without complaining once. The other staff liked him almost immediately, because he learned their names on the first day and remembered them on the second. What none of them knew, what he'd asked the club's general manager to keep quiet, was that Adam's last name was Hartwell, as in Hartwell Group, as in the holding company that owned 41 hotels, a media network, 2 of the country's largest talent and brand management agencies, and, through a quiet little subsidiary, Ravenwood Country Club itself. His father, Richard Hartwell, had built the whole thing from a single failing motel 40 years earlier, and before Richard would so much as let his son sit in a boardroom, he'd given him one instruction: "Go work the floor, not as my son, as a nobody. I want to know how my people treat people who can't do anything for them. That's the only number on a balance sheet that's ever told me the truth about a company." So Adam scrubbed trays. He learned the difference between the members who said thank you and the members who looked through you like glass. He learned which managers protected their staff and which ones threw them under the bus the moment a guest complained. And he learned this is important, exactly how it feels to be invisible to people who have money and have decided that money makes them better than you. He was 3 weeks into that education when Sloane Whitaker booked the West Terrace for a brand activation luncheon. You probably already have a picture of her, and you're probably right. Sloane was famous for being effortlessly rich, at least online. 2 million followers. A feed full of marble countertops, infinity pools, and captions about manifesting abundance. She had a fragrance launching in the fall, a clothing line in talks, and a brand new contract under negotiation with a luxury watch house worth more money than she'd ever admit she needed. The luncheon at Ravenwood was supposed to be the centerpiece of her week, an exclusive event, 50 hand-picked guests, a photographer, and enough champagne to drown a small town. She told her followers she'd earned her spot among the elite. The truth was that her manager had pulled 6 strings to get the booking, and Sloane had never in her life set foot in a room she didn't immediately try to own. She swept onto the terrace 40 minutes late, in white silk and oversized sunglasses, trailing an assistant and a videographer, and the first thing she did was look around for someone to perform her importance on. That someone was Adam. It started small, the way it always does. He brought her sparkling water and she sent it back because the glass had a smudge. He brought a new glass and she made him stand there, holding the tray, while she finished a story to a table about how Staff these days have zero standards. When he set the bread down, she said, without looking at him, "Did I ask for bread? Take it away." "Carbs are violence," her table laughed. He took it away. Here's the thing about cruelty, it feeds on an audience. Every laugh told Sloane she was winning, and every win made her hungrier. By the time the entrees came out, she'd stopped pretending Adam was a person at all. She'd started narrating him. "This," she announced, panning her phone across him as he refilled water glasses, "is what happens when you don't apply yourself in school." She turned to her followers. "Stay in school, babies, or this is your future. Carrying my water." Her table laughed again. Adam finished pouring, said, "Enjoy your lunch," and moved to the next guest. He didn't react. That's what got under her skin. Because Sloane Whitaker had built an entire life on getting reactions, she fed on them. And here was this quiet kid in a server's vest who poured her water, ignored her insults, and somehow seemed completely, infuriatingly fine. It was like swinging at someone in the dark and never feeling your fist land. So she pushed harder. When the dessert course came, she, accidentally, knocked her own glass off the table with her elbow. I watched her do it. Half the terrace watched her do it, and then she stood up and pointed at the floor like a queen pointing at a stain on her castle. "Are you serious right now?" she said. "You dropped this. Pick it up, and do it on camera, because my followers are going to love this." And that brings us back to the beginning. Adam, on one knee. Glass everywhere, the red dot glowing. "Smile for the camera, busboy. This is the closest you'll ever get to money." Now, here's what almost nobody at that lunch understood yet. 3 tables away, a man named Gerald Voss had gone very, very still. Gerald was the general manager of Ravenwood, a man who had spent 26 years keeping the wealthiest people in the state happy. He knew exactly who Adam was. He'd been sworn to secrecy. And he'd just watched a guest order the chairman's son to kneel on broken glass for content. His face had gone the color of old paper. He took one step toward the terrace, and Adam, without even glancing up, lifted one hand a few inches off the floor. "Wait," the gesture said. "Not yet." So Gerald waited, sweating through his suit, while Sloane circled the kneeling young man and performed for 2 million strangers. "You know what your problem is?" she was saying. "No ambition. People like you exist, so people like me have someone to compare ourselves to. It's basically charity that I let you serve me." Her table was howling now. One of her guests, a younger woman near the end of the table, had stopped laughing. She was just staring at her plate, her cheeks pink, like she wanted to disappear. Remember her, too. Adam stood. He set the last shard of glass on the tray. He looked at Sloane, not angry, just steady, and he said the only thing he said to her that whole afternoon that wasn't an apology. "You should be careful how you treat people," he said. "You never really know who they are." And Sloane laughed in his face. "Oh, that's adorable. Is that a threat? From the help?" She turned back to her phone. "He's threatening me, guys. The water boy is threatening me." She blew a kiss at the camera. "Posting this in 5 minutes. Tag him so the whole internet can see what a loser looks like." Adam picked up the tray. He nodded once, politely, like she'd asked him for more bread, and then he walked off the terrace, down the stone steps, and around the corner, and Gerald Voss practically tripped over himself getting to him. "Mr. Hartwell," Gerald hissed, white-faced. "Sir, I had no idea she would. Should I call security? Should I call your father?" Adam set the tray down on a service cart. He took off the black vest, slowly, and folded it over his arm. And for the first time all day, something changed in his face. Not anger. Something colder and quieter than anger. Something that had been deciding, "No," he said. "Don't call security." He glanced back toward the terrace, where laughter still floated on the warm air. Tell the staff to take a 15-minute break. All of them. Kitchen too. And Gerald, bring me my jacket. The real one. It's in the manager's office. Gerald blinked. Your jacket, sir? My father had a navy blazer sent over for me on my first day, Adam said, in case I ever needed to stop being invisible. He almost smiled. I think I need to stop being invisible. Now, while Gerald ran for the jacket, let me tell you what was happening on the other side of all this, because the karma here wasn't an accident, and it wasn't only about a blazer. Sloane's videographer, a freelancer named Marcus, had been quietly horrified for the last 20 minutes. He'd shot plenty of bratty influencer content in his time and made his peace with most of it. But there was something about watching a kid get told to kneel on broken glass that had finally cracked something in him. While Sloane was busy editing her loser waterboy clip to post, Marcus had done something small and enormous. He'd taken his own phone, and he'd quietly recorded the entire thing, not Sloane's flattering angle, but the real one. The kneeling, the pointing, every word out of her mouth, the whole ugly truth of it, in 4K, with sound. He didn't know yet what he'd do with it. He just knew, in his gut, that he wanted the record to exist. He was about to find out it mattered more than he could have dreamed. Because here's the part Sloane had no way of knowing. That watch contract she was so proud of, the luxury house worth more than she'd admit, it wasn't an independent brand. It was a label inside a portfolio managed by Apex Talent. And Apex Talent had been acquired 18 months earlier by a media division of the Hartwell Group. Her clothing line negotiation? Same parent company, 2 layers down. Her fragrance distributor? A Hartwell Logistics subsidiary. Sloane Whitaker, the self-made queen of the country club terrace. He had built almost her entire empire of brand deals, on top of a foundation owned every brick of it by the family of the boy she'd just ordered to kneel. She'd spent an hour humiliating the one person on earth who could end all of it with a single phone call, and she was still live streaming when he came back up the steps. You could feel the terrace change before anyone understood why. It was the way the staff moved, suddenly upright, suddenly fast, suddenly arranging themselves along the edges of the room with their hands folded. It was the way Gerald Voss walked 3 respectful steps behind a young man who, 20 minutes ago, had been pouring water. The plain server's vest was gone. In its place, a beautifully cut navy blazer, crisp white shirt, no tie, a watch on his wrist that 2 or 3 of the older members at the far tables clearly recognized, because they sat up straighter too. Adam walked to the center of the terrace and stopped beside Sloane's table. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Miss Whitaker," he said. "I don't think we were properly introduced." She looked him up and down, still half inside her own joke. "Oh, you got changed. Cute. Did you steal that from the lost and found?" A couple of her guests laughed, but it was thinner now, uncertain, because they'd noticed the staff, and the staff had noticed something they hadn't. "My name is Adam Hartwell," he said. For a second, nothing. The name didn't mean anything to her, and then you could actually watch it happen. It landed on the older man, 2 tables over, a club member named Charles, who went pale and set down his fork. It landed on Gerald, who nodded once, gravely, confirming it to anyone watching his face. It landed on a woman near the windows who did PR for a fashion house and made a tiny, involuntary sound. "Hartwell," Adam said again, gently, like he was helping her find a word. "As in Hartwell Group. We own this club. We've owned it for 6 years." He glanced around the terrace, almost fondly. "My father asked me to spend a few weeks working here as a member of the staff. He wanted me to see how guests treat the people who serve them." He looked back at her. "He believes you can learn everything you need to know about a person by how they treat someone who they think can't do anything for them." The terrace had gone so quiet you could hear ice settling in the buckets. Sloane laughed, but it came out wrong, high, brittle, with a crack running right through the middle of it. "Okay, this is a great prank, but I have a brand too. Apex Talent manages your watch contract," Adam said. "Did you know that? The Veline campaign you announced last week, Apex negotiated it." He let that sit. Hartwell Media acquired Apex 18 months ago. So technically, Miss Whitaker, you've spent the last hour insulting your own management's owner, on camera, to 2 million people. You could have heard a pin drop into the infinity pool. Sloane's phone was still in her hand, still live streaming, and the comments her assistant told someone later had turned into a stampede. Thousands of strangers were typing the same realization at the same time. Is she serious? Did she just do this to the guy who owns her contracts? Someone get her a lawyer. Someone get her a coffin. I didn't know, Sloane said. And just like that, the silk and the sunglasses and the 2 million followers fell away, and there was just a woman who had bet everything on the idea that money made her untouchable, watching the bet come due. It was a bit. It was content. People love that kind of, "You told a man to kneel on broken glass," Adam said quietly, "so your followers could laugh at him. And when he asked you to be kind, you told the internet to tag him so the whole world could see what a loser looks like." He tilted his head. "Do you remember what I said to you?" She didn't answer. "I said you should be careful how you treat people, because you never really know who they are." He nodded slowly. "I wasn't threatening you, Miss Whitaker. I was trying to give you one last chance to be a decent person before it cost you everything." You laughed. And here's where a lesser story would have him scream, or fire her on the spot, or have security drag her out in front of everyone. That's not what happened. What happened was worse for her, and better for everyone watching, because Adam Hartwell had learned something in 3 weeks of being invisible that Sloane had never learned in 2 million followers. That the most powerful thing you can do to a cruel person is simply hold up a mirror and let everyone see. "I'm not going to throw you out," he said. "You're a guest of this club, and our staff treats guests with respect, even the ones who don't deserve it. That's the standard here. It's the standard you couldn't meet for one single lunch." He turned, calmly, to Gerald. "Gerald, please make sure Miss Whitaker's table has everything they need for the rest of the afternoon, on the house." It was the kindness that destroyed her, because every person on that terrace understood, instantly, the size of the gap between how she'd treated him and how he was treating her. The contrast was unbearable. 2 of her own guests stood up and left without a word. The young woman from the end of the table, the one who'd stopped laughing, who'd stared at her plate, stood up too, walked over to Adam, and said, loud enough for the live stream to catch it, "I'm so sorry for what she did. We all just sat there. I'm so sorry." And then she walked off the terrace and didn't look back. Adam thanked her. And then he did the only thing left to do. He looked at Sloane's phone, still streaming, still red-dotted, and he said, to the 2 million strangers watching, "To everyone seeing this, the young man she was filming earlier doesn't need your pity, and he doesn't want her followers' hate sent her way either. Be better than this. Be better than today." And he reached over, gently, and turned her phone face down on the table. "I think the show's over." The fallout came fast, the way it does now. By the time Sloane reached her car, the real video, Marcus's video, the honest one, was everywhere. He'd posted it the moment Adam revealed who he was, captioned simply, "The full story. Decide for yourselves." It didn't need editing. The truth never does. By that night, it had been watched more times than anything Sloane had ever made. By morning, the Watch House had paused the Veline campaign. By the end of the week, Apex Talent, her own management, The company she'd insulted the owner of on a public live stream had quietly released her from her contract by mutual agreement. The clothing line talks evaporated. The fragrance launch was postponed indefinitely. She'd told her followers she earned her spot among the elite. In the end, the elite she'd been performing for were never real. The only real power in that room had been kneeling on the floor, picking up the glass, asking her to be kind. But here's the part of the story I actually care about. The part that isn't about her downfall at all. Adam went back to work the next day. He put the navy blazer back in the manager's office, put the server's vest back on, and finished the last few days of his internship bussing tables and polishing silver, exactly like before. When the staff tried to treat him differently, he wouldn't let them. "Same job today as yesterday," he told them, "just a different last name." On his final day, his father came to the club. Richard Hartwell, the man himself, walked the floor, shook every staff member's hand, and asked them one question each. "Did my son treat you with respect when he thought no one important was watching?" Every single one of them said yes, and Richard, who had built an empire out of a failing motel, who had buried more cruel and clever men than Sloane Whitaker could count, put his hand on his son's shoulder in front of all of them and said, "Then he's ready." Marcus, the videographer who'd recorded the truth, Hartwell Media offered him a job the following month. He took it. The young woman who apologized and walked out? She wrote Adam a letter. She said that watching what happened that day had changed how she thought about the people she walked past every day without seeing. He wrote her back, "They're friends now, the good kind." And Sloane? Last anyone heard, she was trying to rebuild a smaller account, a quieter voice, a lot of videos about growth and lessons learned. Maybe she means it. Maybe she doesn't. That part isn't really ours to decide. The world gave her exactly what she'd given the man on his knees. A moment of total honesty about who she was, in front of everyone, with no filter to hide behind. Because that's the thing about how you treat people when you think no one's watching. Someone always is. The waiter refilling your glass, the janitor mopping your floor, the quiet intern carrying your tray. You never really know who they are, and more than that, you never really know who they'll become, or who's standing 3 tables away, watching you decide what kind of person you are. Money can buy a lot of things. It can buy silk and sunglasses and a booking at a club that owns your future without you even knowing it. But it can't buy back the moment you looked a kind person in the eye and chose to be cruel. Some bills the universe collects in full. So here's what I want to know, and I genuinely want you to tell me in the comments. First, what would you have done if you were Adam, kneeling on that floor with the camera in your face? Would you have stayed calm? Or would you have walked out right then? And second, be honest, have you ever watched someone treat a waiter, a cleaner, or a service worker like they were invisible and wished you'd said something? Tell me your story. I read every single one. If this story moved you even a little, do me a favor, drop a like so more people get to see it. Share it with someone who needs the reminder that kindness is never wasted. And subscribe and tap that bell so you never miss the next story you won't be able to forget. Your kindness is somebody's good day. Go be the person who sees people. I'll see you in the next one.